And we're live. All right, great. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode of No Capes. I am here today with Michelle Sanver, aka Geeky, and we're going to talk about speaking, conference organizing, and PHPWomen. Oh, and Omnom Hub, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right, cool. So I'm taking questions. Twitter, IRC, send me a smoke signal, something. We'll ask her. First up, though, so speaking, I know I saw you speak in Amsterdam this year. When did you start speaking?
In 2011, I believe. No, 2012. It's hard to keep track, time goes so fast. But it was at Amsterdam PHP, Rafo basically pushed me into the user group. So it actually, 2000, it must have been last year, 2013.
Okay, so for a while. And once more, Raphael shows up as the instigator, pushing all of us to speak. So that first talk at Amsterdam PHP, what was it about?
It was about open source, how to contribute. And it was a really weird concept because I had audience feedback. So I gave 10 steps, and after every step, the audience would be able to tell me what their feelings were, how do they do, and give me tips. Because I realized half of the audience would already be contributors to open source in Amsterdam PHP. So it was really nice. It was kind of a collaborative talk.
Okay, so that's a lot different than the normal, stand up for 45 minutes and give a speech type talk, which is kind of what I saw you do and what I've seen lots of speakers do. So how does that compare? Do you have a preference, the more audience involved talk versus
Yes.
more traditional format?
So the audience involved talk is a way, way, way harder talk to give, and it makes me way more nervous. When I gave my first tech talk where you have facts, you can time everything, it's great. But with audience, you never know if you actually have to have audience involvement for the talk to be good, which I did at that point. If the audience is a quiet audience, you cannot good.
Yeah, so it's kind of a gamble there. You're relying on your audience to help you out, and they might not always.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you were probably pretty nervous for that?
Yeah, I was extremely nervous. I'm a nervous person in general, so that wasn't nice.
So do you still get nervous when you speak?
Yes, and I think I always will, but I get less nervous now. Before, I was shaking and standing like a stick, and I could hardly speak at all. And now I move a bit on stage, and I'm still nervous. I always will be, because that's in my nature, but I can handle it now. I couldn't before.
So what did you do then, and even what do you do now to help combat the nerves?
I guess now I know it's not that bad because I've done it before. And even when I felt like it went super bad, I inspired at least one person, and that's all that it's about.
That's good. That's a really good way to look at it. Just keep your eye on the end goal. Okay, so when I saw you speak, you were speaking about Neo4j.
Yeah.
Did I say that right? I think it did. Yeah. Okay, I really, really hate to do this. I'm sorry. I will be back in 2 seconds. Somebody is banging on my door. You talk about Neo4j for a second.
All right. So Neo4j is awesome. It's a graph database, and it's in Java, but it has an awesome REST interface. And I got interested in it when I started with Omnom Hub, which Kayla knows. And Omnom Hub is this awesome open source project I'm making together with Case Jan, aka Vera Heximus, another guy who I met at Amsterdam PHP, who's absolutely amazing. there she is.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Neo4j.
Mm-hmm.
What I really wanted to ask about that is how you got started with that. It's not something that I was even remotely familiar with before seeing your talk.
Okay. So as I said a bit when you left, it's this open source project, OmnomHub, and it's a recipe site, which is really, really nice use case for a graph database because you see all these connected data. You see the recipes with ingredients and the users with the recipes and the recipes with each other. And I had heard a lot about graph databases. It had come up in my Twitter feed, and my sister's boyfriend was leading a Neo4j group in Stockholm. So I got really interested to look more at it and decided to use it for OmnomHub. And I don't regret it. It's so much fun. Love it.
Yeah, your talk was really, really inspiring. It made me want to use it and play with it, specifically because you said that it's very creepy, or it allows you to be very creepy. And I dig that. To be able to draw conclusions, to make inferences based on data to this amazing little graph. And I cook a lot, so OmnomHub sounds amazing.
Awesome.
So that was actually one of the questions that I had was to talk about OmnomHub. So since we're there, what state is it in? Or it's something that you're currently building?
Yeah, so basically we just started for half a year. Both me and Vera has been extremely busy with moving and other things. But now we're finally getting up to speed again, and I'm super, super excited. And we're going to release version 1 pretty soon, and it's really exciting.
Awesome. Is it on GitHub? Are you accepting contributions?
Yes, it's on GitHub, and everyone can help me. Yay. It's github.com/omnomhub.
All right, I will get that. And obviously a really good resource if you're looking to learn a little bit about Neo4j. I know for me, the easiest way to learn something is take a look at code that uses it. So that is an awesome resource out there if you'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah.
We had a question come in on IRC. Somebody wanted to know who was at the door. So not really related to Michelle, but I got flowers.
Aww, nice.
It's the interruption, but they're kind of pretty, and now my desk smells nice. Okay, so Ross Tuck wanted me to ask you about, do you have any tips and lessons about being an expat?
Oh, wow. So obviously I moved to Netherlands when I was only 19 years old, and I recently moved to Switzerland. So I guess I'm a natural expat by now. In Netherlands it was really easy because I had someone to lean on who knew the ways in Netherlands, and I didn't have to learn the language. So basically, tip 1, get to know someone really well and lean on them until you can stand on your own legs. Or do like I did now and just move to a country where you don't speak the language and don't know anyone, because that's more of an adventure and it forces you to be part of the country within a month. It's really... So the tips I have, I guess, is don't be afraid and immerse yourself in the local culture, try new things, and be part of where you now live.
They're good tips to have. Yeah, and I think that can kind of relate into any community, whether it be in person or even what we have to do with our online communities. Immersing yourself, don't be afraid, those sorts of tips translate well.
It's really easy to be afraid, but if you just let go, it's a lot easier to live and enjoy.
See, now I'm really tempted to start singing Let It Go, and I don't think anyone would appreciate that. So instead, we'll go back to talking about speaking. Um, how do you prepare for a talk?
I usually panic a little bit, and then I figure out what I want to get out of it. Usually it's to inspire the crowd to be as inspired as I am about the technology or about the topic. So I want to share my passion and I want to share what I do. So I usually write a lot of topics, just a mind map, what I want to talk about, and then I make my slides, then I prepare them, then I change them 100 times, and then I practice, basically.
Okay. Do you do the whole stuffed animal trick that Ross talked about?
No, I started doing it because I have a million purple elephants, so I can make a really large crowd now.
You've got a whole herd of elephants.
Yeah.
Okay, so, um, panic, determine what you want out of it, write your slides, revise, practice. How long does that usually take? How far out do you usually start preparing?
It depends on the talk, honestly. Some talks are a lot easier to give than others. And I always want to be well prepared, so it can take anything from a week to a month to prepare a talk.
Okay. And I'm sure, the different lengths of talks and things of that nature are going to vary that too.
Yeah, and it also differs how much new things you want to add to the talk, how much you want to double check your facts, and if you want demos in the talk, you may actually want to write an entire new application for your talk just to make the talk better.
So I've seen a couple people now do live coding while speaking. What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't done live coding, but I've done a live demo, which was scary because when it failed completely at Laracon, I was clueless what I would do because that was half my talk. So my thoughts on that is to always have a backup plan. It's cool to do live coding, but always do it well, have a script, follow it so that your timing doesn't go off. And then if something happens, have videos or have backup slides, have something to fill in the time and have the crowd not feel like they lost half of your talk.
Right. I think it was Erica at Laracon who did some live coding, and she mentioned that if it failed for whatever reason, she had it recorded.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty interesting thing that I hadn't thought of. That can be helpful for live demos.
Definitely. Or not necessarily have it recorded, but at least have a plan B. Maybe talk through it with slides.
Right.
Which is, I made that backup for PHP Northwest. If it would fail again, then I would just go through a second slide deck and go through the demo manually, so to speak.
Well, there you go. See? Plan B is imperative.
Yes.
So we have a question in IRC from Davey. What do you prefer, conferences or user groups for speaking?
Both. What can I say? Both. I mean, user groups are really nice, small and intimate, and especially for speakers who are just beginning, it's an amazing way to connect to people and get feedback. User groups, you get way better feedback in my experience than you ever do at the conference, which is kind of weird because usually at the conference there's a lot more people. But at the user group, they really feel like they want to help new speakers. And the best feedback I ever got was on my first talk ever. So I like both.
Oh, I think you cut out. Nope. Well, it looks like Michelle cut out for a minute, so while we're waiting for her to come back, I will improv, not singing anything from Frozen.
Tina, hello?
Oh, there you are.
Yay!
Thank you.
Where did I drop off?
You said you like books. Is the last thing I heard.
Okay, so I like both because I a user group is more intimate. You usually know everyone if it's your local user group. You can go there, you can kind of prepare and get to know the crowd and feel safe. While at the conference, it's people you don't know often, and both are nice in different ways. A user group is great for beginners. A conference is great to get your career further.
Yeah, no, I get that. So I recently spoke at a user group in Raleigh, and that was actually my first time speaking at a user group. I started out speaking at conferences. So I actually found that it was a lot harder for me to speak to a room of 10 people than a room of 250-ish people.
Yeah, so Amsterdam PHP is pretty big, so I haven't talked to a really small room. I imagine that will be hard.
Yeah, it's a bit different. There's a lot of pressure because I don't know. You can see all of the faces looking at you, whereas with 250 people, you can see a couple of the faces looking at you.
Yeah. I always need to focus on a couple of the faces. Usually the ones that look the most interested. And with 5, maybe all of them don't, which gets a bit hard.
Right. Yes. Find an interested face and then focus on them. That is a good tip. Okay. Let's see. Next question. What is your favorite part about speaking?
It's afterwards, actually. It's when people go up to me, like this Neo4j talk, when I overhear people speaking afterwards what they're going to use Neo4j for. Noxy said he had like 7 ideas after hearing my talk, and it's inspiring people to be passionate about the same thing that I love, that they maybe didn't know about before. And when I gave the open source talk, I got people to contribute to the source for the first time. So it's really about inspiring people.
That is awesome. Yeah. Do you get a lot of that, people coming up to you after you give a talk or reaching out to you on social media?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun when people ask me questions after the talk. I love it.
Yeah, I think it gives you an opportunity to go even deeper into the subject with people one-on-one. There's only so much you can cover in an hour time slot. So being able to continue the dialogue afterwards is great. All right, so you kind of touched on this a little bit before, but I want to ask anyway. How do you handle the Q&A portion after a talk?
Basically, I answer the questions that I can answer. And if it's a question that I don't know, I always say that I don't know the answer, but feel free to talk to me afterwards. Or if I know someone in the crowd that knows the answer, I give the question to the crowd. Sometimes I just ask, does anyone know the answer of this question? And usually there's someone in the crowd who does. But it depends what your topic is. Neo4j, I would never ask if anyone in the crowd knows the answer. I would just say we can check that up. Because I don't know everything. So I don't expect anyone to know everything. But I like to be able to help them find out. Basically, don't panic what you don't know.
Right. That's a really good idea. I hadn't really thought of that before. Is asking the audience or letting the audience answer when a question comes through. I know for me, the Q&A portion is probably one of the scariest bits. Because it's not something you can rehearse, you don't get to time it or practice it, and they can throw anything they want at you, and you're kind of on the spot.
So what really helps for me, especially at conferences, is to recruit someone I know who also knows the topic and have them sit in front. And then I can always lean on them if I don't know the answer and look at them with puppy eyes and they will help me. But that's kind of cheating, I guess.
No, the puppy eyes definitely help. And being able to, support each other and lean on each other in this is good. Very good. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, because you're not just a speaker, you're also a conference organizer, and you organize Code Connects. Can you talk a little bit about what Code Connects is?
So Code Connects is a conference sponsored, organized by PHPWomen. We have run it twice so far. The first time was in the US, and the second time I helped organize it in Maastricht, in Netherlands. And our idea was that most conferences have really heavy tech talks. So we wanted 50-50 tech talks and soft skill talks, which is what Code Connects is all about, bringing the human part of the developing out as well, and connecting people.
Okay, so your goal was to have 50-50. Did you reach that goal?
Yes, we did.
Awesome. And how was that received?
So the first time we decided to first have a tech day, so it was only technical talks the first day. And the second day was a soft skill day. And we were only like 20 people in the room, including speakers. So the tech day, we got really close and everyone could ask questions, and it was really great. And the soft day felt more like group therapy, which was interesting, like concept for a conference. Second time we decided to do every second talk, tech talk, and every second talk, soft skill talk. But still a one-track conference. It worked a lot better. People really liked that mix.
Okay, so rather than having a dedicated soft skill day and a dedicated tech day, you guys did alternating every other, and you think that format works a little bit better?
Yeah, definitely, because after a lot of tech talks, people tend to get tired, and also after a lot of soft talks, people tend to float away in their thoughts a bit.
Right, yeah, so I mean, you balance that brain overload with the soft skill talk, and they complement each other well, so that works.
They do.
What was your process for selecting speakers?
We decided to do a completely blind process because we want to be completely fair, and we wanted to have new speakers, and we didn't care who was speaking, basically. We just cared about the topics. So when everyone had sent their CFPs, we removed the names and looked at the title of the talk and abstract. And then we decided from there what we wanted to have, sorted them by tech and by soft skills. And then we just selected the best ones and then saw who it was we wanted on the schedule. I think that's a fair way to do it.
Yeah, it's a really good way. I think more and more people are talking about doing blind submissions, and I personally really, really like that approach.
It led to us having a lot of new speakers, and supporting them was awesome. That was great.
Cool. So what advice do you have for somebody looking to get into speaking when they're writing their abstracts? Do you have any abstract-specific advice?
So I actually have a speaker mentor who always helps me with my abstracts. One of the tips is to don't just write it and send it away. Have someone else look at it with you, because they always have ideas and you can talk about it together. Even if it's not someone who's really speaking, maybe it can be your best friend, whoever. A second pair of eyes is always good to catch, does this really sound good? And when someone else says it does, it probably does.
Okay, so always get a second pair of eyes.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big fan of asking on Twitter. I normally just say, like, hey, I have something that I need feedback on. Someone read this. I usually use gists for abstracts.
I actually usually use Etherpad. It's this collaborating where you can all write in the same document. And then I share it on IRC, and people correct my grammar and typos usually, but sometimes someone just rewrites my abstract completely below and says, isn't this better? And it's kind of open source abstracts. That's really cool.
That's awesome. What is it called?
It's a pad. I usually use a Pirate pad.
Okay. I want to ask you more about CodeMix, but real quick, we have some questions coming in on IRC. So first up, are there any resources you typically use to research your talks, such as Google, books, certain blogs, peer interviews, or is it a case-by-case situation?
It's definitely a case-by-case situation. I can't mention. I use all resources basically, everything I can get.
Okay. Have you found any 1, 2, 5 resources to be good, or anything that's not terribly good?
I think best resources for me are people, like experienced people. Like Neo4j, for instance, I got in contact with people in Sweden working at Neo Technologies, and if I have a question, I can always ask them. And it's really useful to use those resources when preparing your talks.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a super good idea.
And whatever you talk about, the experts, they're usually, wow, she's writing a talk, I really want to help. So just reach out to them. They usually want to help you.
I completely lost my train of thought. But we have another question. So now that you've been speaking a while, where do you think you have improved the most in your speaking skills since you began?
Handling my nerves, definitely. I can now actually move on stage. I can speak without my voice vibrating, so I guess that's my timing is a lot better. I just improved in being less nervous, basically. Being more confident that I can do this, and I can.
Okay, so you mentioned timing as one of the things that you've improved, and I've heard a lot of people talk about timing. How do you have a 45-minute to 60-minute slot, or if it's a lightning talk, it's 15 minutes, whatever it is. How do you how do you manage that time? How do you fit your talk into that amount of time?
So everyone does this differently, but what I like to do is have one-word slides. I have a lot of slides in my talks. Maybe if it's 30-minute talk, I have over 100 slides already. And on these slides, I can go through them quickly, and half time somewhere in the talk, I notice on which slide I am. And then I can just say less in the rest of the slides if I go too slow, or I can say more, and the crowd won't notice what I didn't say, or the crowd won't notice. Yeah, if I go through quicker. Because all they say are these words. If I'm only saying these words, they think they won't miss out. Also, it's a good idea because I sometimes am worried to run short. After my thank you slide, I have a discussion slide. So if I run short, for instance, for my Neo4j talk, I could have what use cases do you see with graph databases? Slide. And then the audience will pop in, and that usually gives all the rest of your time.
Yeah, so that's something that I've learned recently and that I think is super powerful, is the idea that the audience has no idea what you were going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, even technically, if they've seen your talk before, they still don't know what you're going to say this time. So, if you run short, or if you, are going long, they don't know that you're speeding up. They don't know that maybe you skipped a slide or two to save some time, and they don't know that you didn't intentionally plan an extra 5 minutes of discussion at the end. So I think that's a good point and something to help keep in mind. Okay, another question. What are the major differences you see between the European and North American conferences?
Sorry, I lost you. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. What are the major differences you see between European and North American conferences?
So I am yet to speak at the North American conference. I will in February, which is awesome. But the differences I see mainly as an attendee is the way the people are, I guess. It's not that much different. It's community conferences I've been to. Usually North American conferences are warmer. The people that go to PHP conferences, community conferences, are usually the same. So I guess there's not that much difference.
Okay, I mean, that's a good point. We are all a community, no matter where we're from. And real quick, let's stop and just say congratulations on getting accepted to Sunshine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking very much forward to Hug Tackles in February in beautiful Miami. Okay, another question from Davey.
Mm-hmm.
Have you started a user group before?
Yes, I have. I started, basically I lived in Groningen, which is 2 hours away from Amsterdam. And in there was no local community, and I always traveled to Amsterdam. I still did every month travel these 2 hours and 2 hours back. But I felt like I missed the local community, so I made it, which was a really, really cool thing to do.
Okay, so how do you go about doing that? I mean, where do you start, for one?
First, I tweeted out, I want to start a user group in Groningen. Is anyone interested, basically? And it was quiet for days, and I was like, okay, there's no interest. And then suddenly this one guy contacted me and said, hey, I'm interested to help you. I have a lot of contacts. I wouldn't like to run it myself, but I can get you in touch with some people. So I met up with him, and he got me in touch with this amazing co-work space. And they said, you can hold all your meetings here. And it was right next to the central station. And basically, I had my first meeting thinking it would only be me there holding my thumb, someone would come. But 2 people arrived on the first meeting. And we talked just about how to organize the meetups. It was really, really rewarding and really, really cool to see, especially when one person came and never been in the community at all, and now I see him at other user groups as well. So cool.
That's awesome. So how long did you run that user group for?
So I started it at the beginning of the year and moved just a few months later. So I only had it for a couple of months because then I moved to Switzerland. But someone in the user group took over, and it's running every month. So I'm really, really proud, and it's really, really cool to see that they wanted to take over and they wanted to keep the community in Groningen alive.
Awesome. So how did you handle that transition, transitioning over to someone else so that it lives on after you left?
So basically, they handled it for me. They're really awesome people. I said that I have to be moving, and who wants to take over? Do you want to take over? You can. And then I just gave them access to everything they needed, and co-working space, a lunch cafe, talked to them, and everything worked out.
Okay, so that seems simple enough. I'm sure it wasn't actually, but it seems that way. So
as long as someone steps up, it's a lot easier, and I talked to them, and they had ideas how they want to run it a bit differently, and yeah, it's cool. They know how the local people work. I was never really that local coming from Sweden, and they know the developers. They work at local companies. I was working remotely, so they had a lot of contacts and things to actually keep this group running way better than I ever could. So it's really cool.
So you had the co-working space. So I mean, I know that's one of the biggest hurdles to jump is just to find a space to meet.
Yeah.
How did you go? Did you have speakers come in, or was it more of a roundtable situation?
Yeah, I had a speaker every month. Usually I just tormented people from Amsterdam PHP to come all the way to Groningen and speak. And that worked really well. So yeah, we managed to get speakers, and also some new speakers was on our user group. And now they have some roundtable discussions sometimes as well. It's really nice to see.
Cool. So harassing your friends is always a good method of getting speakers.
Yes.
What about like sponsorships or pizza and beer or refreshments?
Actually, since it was not that many people, I tended to buy 2 cases of beer myself. The co-work space sponsored coffee and tea. That was fine.
Cool. So liquid user groups. Those are always fun.
Yes.
Okay, so we have another question. When are you going to start another user group?
When I see a need where I am. Currently, I don't see a need. There's Web Tuesday in Zurich. It's more about everything web-related. And there's JavaScript groups. There's a lot of tech groups here, so I don't see a reason. I can attend them, I can help them, but I don't see a reason to start a new one.
Okay, so that kind of answers the next question. Are you the next Raphael Dom?
I guess not.
Okay, so we were speaking about Code Connects a minute ago, and I kind of want to go back to that. So from your experience as a conference organizer, I guess just talk a little bit about that experience. I mean, from the outside, it can look almost simple to plan a conference, and I know that it's absolutely not. So can you expound a little bit about all the work that goes into planning a conference?
Basically, some people planned a conference. It was some guys and their wives said they were now conference widows. You bring so much time into a conference, it's insane. It's and also your nerves, things like getting sponsors, looking at all the different venues and seeing what you can afford, planning the financials, and the speaker process, looking through hundreds of abstracts and knowing you can only choose 20. It's really, really difficult. It took us months to plan Code Connects, and that was a small conference. We were only 2 people, me and Lineke, but still months of work. So if you're going to do it, you should probably be more people and have clear roles, who does what, and divide it, because it takes all of you. So
how many, talking about having to sort through the abstracts, how many abstracts did you get for Code Connects? Hundreds or?
I don't really remember, about 100 to 200, 100 probably.
Okay, so you got, 5 times more than the slots that you had available. Was that hard? To me, I think that would probably be the hardest part.
Yeah, it's really hard, but it helps when a speaker actually gives 10 talks, but we didn't know this because of the blind selection. Yeah, it's really hard, but also since only some of them were soft skills, that was the hardest part actually, because we didn't have that many soft skill talks to choose from. So then, if you have a lot to choose from, then you start choosing topics rather than looking at what talks there are. Okay, so I want an API talk. Let's see which API abstractions we have, and then we can choose one of those talks. There were some hot topics we wanted to have. We wanted someone to talk about Vagrant. We wanted someone to talk about APIs and things that are currently, or was currently, really hot. So we looked through those abstracts, and then we also defined we didn't want anything framework specific, because we were one track, and someone speaking about Symfony or Zen framework or Drupal in a one-track conference won't work out. So we could basically kill half of the abstracts just by that.
Okay. Did you put anywhere in your call for papers that you wouldn't accept anything that was framework specific?
Yeah, we did.
And they still have permission?
People still send all of their talks, so.
Okay. Sorry, I have to make myself. So what tips do you have for coming up with topics to speak on?
Speak on what you like to do, and what passionates you, what inspires you. Even if you don't know much about it, speaking about it will teach you. I think speaking about it teaches me more sometimes than coding it. Because speaking about it means I have to actually be sure about it and not only try.
Right. I mean, speaking is essentially kind of like teaching. So I find that when you have to teach about something, you get a deeper understanding than just if you were trying to learn it yourself.
Yes.
Okay, we got 2 more questions. If you're not a Ninja Turtle, what would your action figure look like?
If I'm not a Ninja Turtle.
If you're not.
Someone once told me that if I was a character in Borderlands 2, I would be a cuddly rainbow bear with polka dots.
Cuddly rainbow polka dot bear. So
Yeah.
I'm going to need somebody with graphic skills to please get on drawing this up. That'd be great. Okay, so here is a question from Matthew. How did you get into using Symfony?
I don't remember, honestly. I was using Zen Framework 1, and then after that, there was a project, I think it was ProTalk actually, and it was my first open source contribution to ProTalk that was written in Symfony. And it was this silly thing where I was going to add an icon, and I did it. First contribution, yay! And then after that, I had a client who wanted something in Symfony because I was a freelancer. And after that, I got stuck, and I like it. So, and now on my day-to-day job, it's only Symfony.
Okay, so what do you like about Symfony?
It's clearly defined rules and easy to use once you understand it.
Okay. Is there anything that you don't like about it?
It's not very flexible if you want to go outside the box.
Okay. So clear, easy to use, but possibly inside a box. I have actually, I've played with Symfony components, but I've never used Symfony as a whole, so.
Cool.
There's that. Right.
Basically, what I don't like is that there's the Symfony way or no way. Often you have to do things the way Symfony does it. You don't have to, but if you don't, another Symfony developer will look at you like you're insane. So you have to follow these strict rules, which I don't always like.
Is there a pretty good community inside Symfony?
It's a huge community, and they have their own conferences. SymphonyCon, which I'm going to, the Symfony Live, and the Symfony RC channels. Yeah, it's huge, and it's a really nice community.
Okay, so I mean, for those getting started out, there are people there to support you and help you.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. All right, we have about 15 minutes left, and there's one other pretty big topic I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, one more question first. How many elephants do you own? No, I think we lost her again. So sad. She will return because she always returns. But last time she went away, I was told to tell a joke, so I will tell a joke. What do you call a cow with no legs? Ground beef. See, I was telling jokes while you were gone, and now you're back.
Yeah.
So the last question we had was, how many elephants do you own?
Well, these purple ones are just staying with me temporarily until you buy them. So, but I own 7 elephants, one of every color, and one big purple one. The rest are for other people.
Cool. And the purple elephant is the PHPWomen elephant, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That's actually the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So, for anyone who doesn't know, what is PHPWomen?
PHPWomen is an inclusive user group. Basically, we aim to make everyone feel comfortable at conferences, on IRC channels, online, offline, everywhere. And basically, yeah, we just want everyone to feel comfortable. It doesn't matter who you are. And that's one of our main goals. Because I'm really passionate about it, because often I didn't feel comfortable. And I know how I feel comfortable. And I want to make everyone feel that way too.
Okay, so you're currently the co-president of PHPWomen?
I am.
And who's the other co-president? I don't understand that.
Linneke Kerkhoff-Willems. She's one of my best friends, and she's awesome. And we got asked by Elizabeth Naramore to run it, and we decided to run it together as 2 people.
Awesome. And she was the one that helped you plan CodeConnect, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
She was the one who was local, so she was doing a lot of running around and basically spending her life to Code Connects. It was amazing.
Awesome. And you said, how did you get involved with PHPWomen?
I joined the IRC channel as the IRC addict that I am. And first I was a little bit skeptic, like most people are. There seems to be a lot of misconception. And then I just got friends with everyone in there, and it's such a nice community. I could ask all my silly questions and no one would judge me. It's just such a nice place.
Okay. So you said that this is an inclusive community and it's for everyone, to make everybody feel welcome. So why PHPWomen?
It's basically to just raise awareness that we're here. It's just a name to get women who often don't feel included to come to us. So it's just for them to see us. That's all.
Okay. I think that's probably where some of the misconception comes from. Yeah. So I just want it on the record and cleared up that men, boys are welcome too.
Yeah, we thought about changing it to PHP people, and then me and Davey actually talked about it. So Davey is the US lead for PHPWomen, and then he said, maybe we should change to PHP people, and maybe we should change the logo. And then I was like, we have just printed 1,800 elephants with a logo. You know that, right? So I think PHPWomen is really good to raise awareness, and a lot of women have found each other and feel more included in the community, which is part of it, to make minorities feel welcome. So I think it helps already, just by the name.
Yeah, definitely. What are some of those things, there's Code Connects, what are some other things that PHPWomen does?
So we send people to conferences. We often send students, and we often get free tickets as well that we help give away. We have this PHP Bridge program, which is raising new developers, basically. A tutorial and workshop for people who have never touched code before. And we help, together with PHP Mentoring, we mentor people. And we're just a friendly group where people can ask questions and be nice.
And that channel on IRC is PHPWomen? Yep. anyone can join that channel. I'm currently hanging out inside there right now.
Awesome.
Having a good time. That is actually where most of our questions have come from, is the amazing PHP Women room on IRC. Okay, so a question from Aisha. What do you think are the biggest achievements for PHP Women this far?
Wow, that's a really hard question. I think that we have helped some people feel more included in the community. And that's the biggest achievement you can possibly get, and one of our biggest goals ever. And so that's our biggest achievement so far.
Okay, and the latter half of that question, what is the biggest challenge still out there for PHP Women?
The biggest challenge is to still there's differences, and there's always sometimes people just feel like things are wrong and we don't know if we should get involved or not. And there's silly things like t-shirts at conferences where it's all these small things and putting them all together and seeing what we should focus on. That's one of our biggest challenges because we can't solve every problem in the world. So it's trying to focus on something is hard when we want to do everything.
So do you have a method in place for deciding where your focus is going to go?
Yes, we're currently working on our focus for 2015. So that's coming out soon.
Cool. And is that like a leadership thing that the leadership team for PHP Women does, or is that the whole community decides? How is that?
Basically, we're trying to be transparent, so everyone can just come with ideas and say what they think we should do. But in the end, it's me, Lineker, and David deciding.
Okay. So another question is about, you mentioned sending people to conferences. So the PHP Women Scholarships. How do you manage those?
Usually it's a Google form where people send a motivation why they really want to go. And sometimes we get these really, really moving motivations. And it's not always women, it's all people in the world. And we usually send the most fitting person who otherwise would not be able to go to the conference. And the tickets that we get are usually from the conference. They are usually sponsoring tickets to PHP Women. And then we can often help with travel. But we're trying to keep things to local people, to connect local people with the local community, which is one of our goals for 2015. Bring the local communities closer to each other.
Okay, and do you accept donations for these scholarships?
Of course we do. One of the ways to actually donate is to buy a purple elephant. Part of it goes to PHP Women. We also have Git Tip, or they changed the name recently. What did they change to?
I didn't know that they had changed.
RatiPay is what they're called now. And we're working on other ways to donate.
Okay. What can someone do to help PHP Women? With the goal of connecting people with their local community, what can they do on a local level to help PHP Women?
Locally, for instance, if you're at a user group, you can talk to people who seem lonely, and everything helps. Just bring the PHP Women spirit where you are. That helps the most. And talk to people, be a friendly face.
So really helping PHP Women just involves being nice.
Yes.
I can get behind that all day long. Oh, another question. What is moving behind you?
Oh, I have a tortoise, E.T. I had him since I was a small kid. So that's my tortoise. really small.
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
really cool. Okay, so we're about done here. Let's check my questions. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about?
No, I think I'm good.
Cool.
I want to say that everyone is awesome, and thank you, Kayla, for doing this No Capes thing. It's really cool.
Well, thank you for being on. It was awesome to talk to you. And I really had fun. I learned a lot. So thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.